Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions of the worlds of pop culture, social media, sports, music, everything. Returning Popternative guest is with me. We are with the lead vocalist of Silverstein and the host of the Lead Singer Syndrome podcast, Mr. Shane Told is with us. Shane, welcome back to Popternative.
Hello, everybody.
Dude.
Thanks for having me. Dude.
Dude. So, we talked about it a little bit before. We actually thought we were rolling, but we weren't. The podcast is doing really well. Congratulations. And, you do a lot of interviews talking about Silverstein, but I want to get some Lead Singer Syndrome in there, right? So, we talked about it a little bit last time when you were on with me and Ryan Spooner. But, the podcast is basically you interviewing vocalists of other bands and just them sharing stories. So what could people kind of expect? Go into more detail about that for people who haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, well, it's called Lead Singer Syndrome, which is just kind of a hilarious name. The name is a little bit of kind of debunking the myths of the, you think of the classic, lead singer that kind of is a little clueless, all the other band members kind of do everything and they kind of drag his drunk ass around and he's picking up chicks and, all those, stereotypes are sort of, mentioned in the name, but it's also, something that I think we debunk every week, because it's incredible how many lead singers didn't want to be the singer, or other musicians and just got thrown into the role. And we talk about, basically their journey to where they are today. And, I talk to singers from all different walks of life, from big bands to small bands to everything in between, artists that have been doing it for decades and artists that have just been doing it for maybe even a couple of years. So it really, if you're a lead singer and you have a great story, I want to talk to you. And that's what my podcast is all about.
No, absolutely. Focusing on Silverstein a little bit, I remember like yesterday when you guys toured the 10-year anniversary of Discovering the Waterfront. And that was like, what was that? That was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it was 2015. So it's three years ago now.
So it's unbelievable. I mean, the term pioneer, I don't know if you like it or not, but Silverstein was part of that crop of the first kind of like post-hardcore screamo bands. Like it or not, you guys were part of that crop, right? So the term pioneer is going to be kind of used. What do you kind of think about that when you kind of look at bands that you're touring with right now, like Picturesque, and bands that are really secrets that are doing,
right,
what you guys kind of did years ago and are kind of, making it their own, but they're kind of looking at you as kind of the pioneer behind that sound.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I guess nowadays I do hear from bands that say we influenced them, or that, when they were whatever age in high school, they like loved Silverstein, and that's flattering, and it's cool, especially when some of the bands we're on tour with will say, do you remember this show like at the House of Blues in Anaheim? And, and they'll say something like that and they'll talk about that. And that always makes me feel good. In terms of being a pioneer, I don't think we ever felt like we were. I think we felt like we were part of something, because there really was a great, music scene in the early, 2000s and, in the suburbs of Toronto, and that spread out open, into a kind of a whole scene worldwide. So I don't know. We never felt like we invented the wheel or anything at all. And a lot of people at the time we came out even kind of said, oh, they're not doing anything new. So it's funny now to get credit for that.
No, absolutely.
but I think one thing we tried to do is just write music that we thought was, honest and timeless, and songs that were, good songs. And I think that that's the real secret that is why we're here, all these years later.
A lot of bands grow every year. Every record, they're growing, they're trying something new. when I think of bands, like when I think of Silverstein and August Burns Red, and Parkway Drive was part of that, but listening to their last couple of songs, I think they're changing it. But what I mean now is every Silverstein record there might be some differences, but it's a Silverstein record. The recipe is there. It's like there's some discovering the waterfront elements and moments in the newer records you guys are putting out. You know, the sound, I don't think the sound has changed that much. So my question is, does Silverstein kind of pride themselves a little bit on kind of being the same band sound wise, and here and there they'll experiment but not kind of completely change the sound?
Well, I think, it's hard to say. I mean, we aren't going to radically change. Like, we're not going to start, turn into like an EDM band or a country band, or, like I'm not going to stop singing or stop screaming. We're still doing, I guess, the things that make us who we are. But I'd say like our new record, Dead Reflection, is quite a bit different. I think, like, in some of the way we approached the production and some of the songwriting and some of the lyrics too. I think it is quite a bit different. But I always say, like, from one record to the next, maybe you don't hear a massive change. But if you compare like our newest record to our first record, it's like completely different. Like, it doesn't sound like the same band at all. So I think, a series of natural steps and natural progressions between one album to another, it might not be drastic, but when you look at the sum of the parts, and we just put out our 8th album last summer, I think there is quite a bit of drastic differences. And, August Burns Red is definitely, I think if you've heard one August Burns Red record, you get the vibe of what they're trying to do. And in some ways, I'll take that as a compliment to be compared to them, because they're a band that's had amazing longevity, has amazing fans, and are some of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
I find it funny when your last record came out, I slung you a text, and I was like, you'll never guess what song I like the most. And you hit it. It was the Afterglow, because I like the poppy stuff. Yeah.
And that's a different song for us. Like, I don't know if we'd ever done a full-on pop punk song like that before.
It seems to be the most popular song on the record.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And we like, I remember when we were writing it, it was Paul Mark came up with this music, and I said to myself, okay, like, this music's poppy, so I guess I'm gonna do my thing over it, which is my thing is singing and screaming and writing these kind of, like, I don't know, dark lyrics, like, that's my thing. And I was writing it, and I was in a bit of a weird place at the time, and I didn't particularly like what I was coming up with. Mm-hmm. And not to say I gave up, but I said to Paul Mark, I said, this is your song. You wrote all the music for this. This is your vision. Why don't you take a stab at it? Mm-hmm. Because I don't know. And he, he wrote it like a pop punk song. Yeah. He wrote the words and the melodies, like, very, very hooky, catchy, no screaming. And when he wrote it, I was like, this is great, man, but is this us? Like, can we do this? Are our fans going to be like, well, there's no screaming. There's no, like, the imagery's different. And we went out on a limb and we recorded it, and it's one of our favorite songs on the record, and a song that, like, is becoming a staple of our set live.
Yeah,
we closed with it.
Well, man,
on the last tour,
it has over 2 million streams on Spotify. Like,
I don't know what that means. I think that's good.
Well, no, it's like, because if you go to Silverstein's page on Spotify, the first song that comes up is Afterglow, and then it's My Heroine, and then Smile in Your Sleep, and then Ghost and Retrograde. Yeah. So obviously the new record.
It's nice to see the new. No, well, that actually doesn't you can't pick that. Yeah. What's popular on Spotify is what's popular on Spotify. Exactly. You can do at the top, you can do like artist choice, and you can put whatever you want there if you have access to your band's on Spotify account, which in this day and age you should. But the songs that say popular, that is actually what is the most listened to song. So it's cool to see that mix of the classic songs and the new songs. That's really good to see.
I've spoken to you about this before, but what I really like about Silverstein, and sometimes you guys have pull, but sometimes it's you inquire. But when you tour, you bring some pretty cool bands with you, and
Mm,
what I really like about that is it's helped me find some bands. I mean, you tweeted out that you were going on tour with Picturesque, and I've been kind of
mm,
out of the loop a little bit, and I checked out that band. That band is awesome. And then I checked
yeah.
out, and I checked out, like, I knew Broadside, right? But then
Hmm.
when I saw that you brought Broadside on tour, I was like, that's awesome. Because I had Pat and Dorian on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like, that's amazing. So my question to you is, do most bands do that? Is there kind of, like, what's that like in terms of, do you guys have pull, like, the headliners of who you could bring on tour? Is the agent, like, are the agents kind of asking you or just saying these guys are coming on tour? Like, how does that work?
Uh, it kind of works a lot of different ways, and I don't really know how other bands decide on their support when they're headlining. I think most bands kind of play it safer than we do. And what I mean by that is like we literally like look and scrounge and see what bands not only are going to be like hopefully bring out some kids to see them and bring something to the turnout of the tour, but also are bands that work with something that we think our fans are going to like, that are coming out early to the shows, and just bands that we think are awesome. And I think every tour, we really work hard to make sure that that's something we're achieving.
Hmm.
And it can come from anywhere. Like, when we do a headline tour, we almost always take submissions, which basically means our agent will put out, wire out basically to all the other agents in, call it the music industry, and say, hey, Silverstein's doing this tour. We're looking for bands in these slots, and who's down, and we'll get a list. And me, myself, and Paul, our drummer, will go through and we'll personally listen to every band on the list to check them out, to see if it's something that we haven't heard of, and then from there we'll kind of narrow down the list, see who's actually available, and then we get them on the tour.
And there doesn't
And
seem to be like usually, unless you really like a band or you're friends with them, you bring them out again. But like it always changes, which I think is good too.
yeah, I think like we don't want to repeat the same tour over and over again. I mean, there's bands that we like love that are our friends that like we would love to tour with every tour. But we think it's better to switch it up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it happens a lot where you'll bring out somebody in one territory, and then you'll get along with them, and there's someone you mesh with, so we'll have them out in another territory, like a band like Dream on Dreamer from Australia.
So
We
good.
had that, we toured with them in Europe, and then we got along with them great, so we did another tour with them in Australia. So it's cool when that happens too.
Okay, we have to talk about this Warp Tour, Fans Warp Tour.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so a lot of good memories. Memory of mine is in Montreal when Silverstein asked for a circle pit for Bored Dead, and then I fell and I messed up my knee pretty well. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
every time I see you, I feel like I mentioned that to you, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, you mentioned that," but I totally forgot. But yeah, that was Warped Tour was great. So obviously, that's basically a message that the industry unfortunately is changing. That this tour can't really go on anymore, which I think
Mm,
is unfortunate because people are finding out, like, found out their favorite bands from that tour. Like, I remember I found like 4 Years Strong because of that tour, and some of the bands that I listened to because of War Tour. But I feel like, is there a difference? Is there like what do you think are some of the reasons why kind of it didn't work out, and or if there's anything about it that you could say? I mean, is Spotify and those kind of digital platforms kind of changing how we're finding bands and people aren't going to festivals as much? What do you kind of think about that?
it's hard to say, man, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. I mean, let's give credit where credit's due, and you know, let's address that Warped Tour's had an incredible run.
amazing.
The longest running music festival, I think, in North America. I think like touring festival, and I think it's a combination of things. I think one thing you can't overlook is just the fact that younger people are like this all day long on their phones, and that's for the most part, free. And people are just like they're so into their apps and their phones and their technology that people don't go out and see each other and do social things like in groups as much as they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of my first Warped Tour in 1997 that I went to, which is crazy how many years ago that is now.
Yeah,
but like it was for me, it was either like sitting at home watching like boring MTV or Much Music videos, and or like going to a music festival that day,
Mm-hmm.
And now I just feel like it's harder and harder to get young people engaged to go. And I think people that are, well, maybe not quite my age, but people that are a bit older still have that passion for going to festivals. But whether it's younger people just aren't that interested,
Yeah.
whether it's parents saying it's dangerous, like I think kids are more sheltered than they used to be too. So I think there's a number of factors, and I think also the style of music. I think like Warped Tour did a great job of adjusting that to what was popular, and I think now the bands people want to go out and see on Warped Tour, they've been so spoiled with some of these big names. Like think of some of the bands you saw, that are just they're too big for the tour now. People are like, oh, get Paramore and A Day to Remember and Blink-182, and it's like, why would you get those bands? They can play their own amphitheater tour. So, I think people are expecting. I don't know what they're expecting, what bands they think they're gonna be able to get, and I think that it's just people have shit talked it on the internet, and it's honestly, I don't even think that it's doing that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think like that's even the reason Kevin's putting it to bed. I think it's more just that he's a little tired.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know for sure, but this isn't any insider info. I just know when you go to warptour.com, it says that this is the last ever I don't know what it says verbatim, but it says like last ever full national run of Warped Tour.
Mm-hmm.
It says that.
Mm.
Which makes it sound like they could be doing other stuff, whether it's regional shows, kind of like Riot Fest does, or maybe it'll be maybe they'll just do like one big one, in California or something every year. So maybe this is the last time they go through places like St. Petersburg, Florida, which rains every year,
Yeah.
or Phoenix, Arizona, which is like hot as fuck. Like, why are you there? There's those shows that I think, and don't get me wrong, we've had some great shows in those places, but like sometimes it's like, man,
the rain sucks.
That struggle
the rain
is real.
Sucks. I hate the rain. Like Montreal and Toronto have had some rainy Warped Tours.
Oh, man, Toronto was cursed.
I
Like,
know.
it rained like 5 years in a row.
I
Like,
know.
And I'm not talking like a couple drops. Like it fucking rained. So so I think they like you just talk about that, and I think people are like, well, I could stay home on my phone and play this like real cool app game that I just downloaded for free today, or I could go wait in the hot sun and pay like $50. And like for some people, for me, it's like, well, I want to have like fun and adventure and like meet new people and see bands I don't know. And other people are like, I'm just gonna stay home. And that's the reality.
But the reality is too, though, Shane, is that a live event, whether it's a hockey game, whether it's a music festival, whether it's a bar show with like 200 people, you're not gonna get that on your cell phone. You're not gonna get it. Like you're not gonna get the emotion that's gonna be evoked. You're not gonna get kind of the loudness and the fun. Like there's nothing like a live event. So I'm hoping that there's gonna be a shift.
Thank God you can't download a T-shirt, or I wouldn't have a job. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
You're not wrong. I totally get what you're saying, but I think you get what I'm saying too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's like there's just so much out there, for people now, and I really think it's just, it's harder to get people engaged to want to come do something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot out there.
what's going on with Silverstein lately? What can you tell us? Like, I mean, you guys were touring a little bit. What's happening that you're allowed to tell us?
Well, we're going to Europe 4 times this year,
Wow,
so that's pretty crazy. A lot of European
four
touring.
times?
Yeah, and we're doing 8 Warped Tour shows. So we're doing
That's kind of cool that you were like that you're gonna be on the final Warped Tour. That's awesome.
yeah, like when we got word that it was going to be the last one before like kind of the general public did, and we said to the Warped Tour people, like, we heard about it and we said, is this true? Like, tell some of our friends that work in production, and they're like, yeah, it's true. And then of course, like, the next day they said, hey, you guys have been a big part of the tour, for a long time. We'd love to have you guys, do some of the dates. And we're like, well, we did the whole thing last year. And they're like, yeah, we know you did the whole thing last year. And there's kind of like an unwritten rule that bands don't do it 2 years in a row. But they wanted us to do some of it. So we picked, it was nice of them to let us pick, but we picked 8 shows kind of near our, near Toronto
Neck
area.
of the woods, yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. And we said, hell yeah, like, we'd love to do it. And, it's going to be emotional.
It will.
And not just for us on the last day we're playing, like, it's going to be emotional for everybody there every day, because, most people are only going to the one show in their hometown, and it's going to be the last one ever. And I think that it's going to be hard for some people to let go, especially, I've been going since, what did I say, 97. So that's 20, so it'll be like 22 years or something like that. It's pretty crazy.
No, it is for sure. And who are you touring with Europe? Who are you touring Europe with?
Well, we're doing a lot of festivals.
Okay.
So it's it's harder on those things to figure out a band to do the whole thing with, because maybe they're not on all the same festivals you're on. So we kind of go over there, and then we end up doing like just random shows. Like, you might be playing a huge festival on like a Saturday, daytime festival, then a smaller festival on Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're playing just like club shows wherever you can to fill in the gaps. So we're doing that, and we're going back to Europe multiple times this year, just to do a bunch of different festivals over there.
And then
and we're going to Australia too with Comeback Kid. So
sweet.
that'll be
just
awesome.
touring. So when you're done touring, 9th record possibly?
Yeah, we're talking about it. I think, like, we really feel strongly about Dead Reflection.
Yeah, it's a great.
We really, really like the record, and we want to give it a fair shake, and we don't want to cut off this record cycle prematurely. So I think we're kind of trying to ride this out, and I feel like live, like as a live band, I know it's kind of crazy to say this, because we've been a band for 18 years, but I feel like we're just hitting our stride. I don't know. I feel like we, like, this last tour, we put together this show and this set list that we really felt like confident about. So I think that right now we really want to just promote the album, promote, our old stuff and our legacy as well. Yeah. And just put on a great show that we can put on.
Sure. Now it's your time to plug away. Where do you want people to follow you guys? Where can they find it? Where could they check out the podcast? Plug away, Shaner.
Yeah, Lead Singer Syndrome is the podcast. I mean, you just search on whatever you listen to podcasts on. If you're an Apple guy, just right on the iPhone app that comes on your phone. If you're an Android user, I think it's on like Stitcher.
Yep.
Or whatever, different podcast app. Or it's on SoundCloud as well. Lead Singer Syndrome. And the band, I mean, same thing. Just type in Silverstein and
Silverstein, Bullet for My Valentine. Remember Marco Robbie?
Oh yeah.
We have to talk. That was cool.
Yeah, no, she dropped the Silverstein and she called us a metal band, but I do believe she actually did listen to us at some point.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, I haven't seen the I, Tonya movie. I really want to see the I, Tonya movie.
Yeah, I saw it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's funny that it's just like talking about metal, and then Silverstein is the band she brings up.
The first one out of her mouth, yeah.
I know. Unless there's another band called Silverstein.
No, I don't believe so. But no, that was flattering, to know that she's down. I definitely
Have you guys
followed
invited her
her.
to a show?
Well, I followed her on like Instagram. I don't know if I slid into her DMs or not, but I I definitely followed her. And then I looked at like she had like 8.9 million followers or something, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not even like
Yeah.
a blip on her radar ever or whatever. And I just was like, it's a cool story, and that's as far as we're gonna run with it. But I know you're a hockey fan, Peter, and what was kind of cool, along the same vein is that the goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights, who was basically like the fourth stringer,
Lagasse.
Lagasse, yeah, Max Lagasse, he had Silverstein, like our like written logo,
Yes.
on the back of his helmet.
I know about this. This was awesome.
That was the craziest thing. We're just like, somebody's like screenshotted it. They're like, dude, the goaltender for the Golden Knights has your band name on his helmet.
But
So we got in touch. We got in touch, and then did I tell you in Ottawa we went to the game?
No.
I didn't tell you.
You didn't tell me. You didn't text me. What?
Yeah, well, you couldn't come to the show though. We were in Ottawa,
Oh, yeah.
and it was a day game, and Max, it worked. It couldn't have worked out any better. And Max put us all on the ticket list, and we all got tickets, and we saw him get his first NHL win against your lowly Ottawa Senators. So
we gotta go to New York to go see Spooner play with the Rangers.
right, yeah,
He got traded.
Yeah, he's been doing okay over there too.
Yeah, for sure. But before we wrap up quickly, because I find it interesting, is that you bring in like Lagasse and like the the Silverstein on his mask and everything. But the thing is, you think about it, you guys were the first crop of that new genre of music. That you can't forget that. Like, it was literally what was out there for me was Take It Back Sunday, Hawthorne Heights, Silverstein, Atreyu. And those were kind of the bands. That was like the
Those
first.
are all Victory Records bands, so give them some credit. But I mean, yeah, we were a part of a movement.
It was the first,
and
right? Like, people are gonna remember the first crop, right?
Yeah, I mean, of a certain crop. I mean, there were crops that came before that influenced me, But I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I'll definitely give you credit for that, and give my band some credit, I guess, too. And somebody like, whether it's Margot Robbie or Max Lagasse, they were subjected to that, and that meant something to them at some point. And I think for Max, it still matters because he still says we're his favorite band. So, I think that's awesome. And anytime we make an impact on somebody, especially one so positive, I think that's a special thing and something that we can kind of, pat ourselves on the back for.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I know, like, Ryan Spooner's cousin too. I went to a Seaway show like a couple of years ago, and Spooner's cousin came out with us, and he's like your Silverstein's favorite band of all time. He has like a huge tattoo on his back.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, so
cool.
Yeah, man. But Shane, always a pleasure, man. It's cool.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah, of course. I wish you all the best with the tours, and all the best with getting in contact with Margot Robbie, because I feel like we all want that to happen one day. See her at a show.
Yeah,
It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm not expecting much there, but
yeah, for sure. Well, this has been Popternative. You can catch previous episodes of Popternative YouTube for the video versions. If you don't want to see our faces, you can just listen to the podcast. Yeah,
I got like a microwave behind me and a thermostat. Like, I didn't think about this before I turned on my computer.
Man,
so
when I used to do it, I had like 4 plugs in the back. The guy who had this house before me was really into like construction, so there's just like plugs everywhere.
Dude, you look like a wizard with your black like background and your very fancy microphone. No, you're looking good.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, until next time, this is Shane Told and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.